And without further ado, Melissa McClary Davis is founder and CEO of Wise Digital Marketing. I got to tell you, I was really impressed by some of her clients. She has had experience in Fortune 500 companies, working for companies such as AT&T, Ford, State Farm, Coca-Cola Corporation, General Motors, Hallmark Cards, Lane Bryant, Best Buy, Facebook, and Instagram. I think that Melissa's ability to work with small businesses and to take our business to the next level, because she's seen it as a big picture when she worked for corporate America, is really a blessing and really uncanny. So when I read about her, when Lynn told me about her, and I watched some information about her, I was really impressed, and I said, Kristen, we just need to have Melissa on. I don't think I need to pre-interview her. If she's willing to do it, we'd love to have her. So Melissa, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. Gosh, wow. You know, who's that person you're talking about? I'm like, is that me? Is she talking about me?
Come here. I did something.
Thanks. So yeah, if you want to go on mute, unless you have anything to say right now, that's fine. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to share this information with everyone. And thanks again, Dawn, and thanks again, Lynn, for allowing me to provide great information about marketing, something that I love to do. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, because I know we have to about what, 1 o'clock. It's closer to 1. Is that about right?
Yeah, 1 o'clock. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I want to make sure that I leave some time for questions. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I have a couple of windows, so bear with me as I have a couple of monitors, and I want to make sure you should see my screen. And I want to
preferably, Melissa, if we're able to be done by about 12:50 or 12:55, that would be helpful.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I can talk about this for a while, so definitely cut me off, you know, if we do get to that number. I'm sharing my screen. I know sometimes with Zoom, I may or may not get a chance to look at the chat. So if you do have questions, which I like to take questions as we go, as well as at the end, feel free to raise a voice, because I may miss a question in the chat. But I just figured, you know what, it's great to be here. I feel great to be able to talk to folks such as yourself, esteemed folks. And if you haven't, grabbed some lunch, you know, before you get those Panera cards. If you're hungry, feel free to snack on something, grab a beverage. I have my tea here. If you can, mute your phone, but I know how it is, you know. We're trying to multitask with everything that we do every day. If you are, obviously a lot of us are working from home. If you can, you know, if you can close your office or your bedroom or your basement or your kitchen or, you know, door over these next 45 minutes to an hour, that will be great. Grab a pen and a notebook to take some notes, or just take pictures of the screen. That's fine too. And then I always say, you know, light a candle. I'm big on candles. So light a candle, relax. I have a candle all the time. I think I have a candle fetish. So relax and take it in. Take in the information that I'm about to share, and know that you can see all my handles down at the bottom. So there's a way to reach me if you have any questions after this. So let's go ahead and get started. As Dawn says, I own Wise Digital Marketing, which is a digital marketing agency. It's really a go-to place that I help small businesses who are either understaffed or overwhelmed with some of their marketing needs. And like she mentioned before, I worked with a lot of brands in the past and could continue to do so. A fun fact, my time at Hallmark, it was interesting because Hallmark had a way, because they're Hallmark cards, right, in Kansas City. If you had a memo or an email that you have to send to people, it could only be as much information that could fit on a Hallmark card. So that was like one of their mandates in terms of communications. You know, if you had to put more on a Hallmark that didn't fit on a Hallmark card, and that's just the one page, not the backside, you had to get up and actually go and physically talk to that person. So that was their way to kind of keep the emails in check when I was there, that the message needed to almost be like the size of a tweet. So it's funny that, you know, a company as old as Hallmark was a little revolutionary in terms of very concise messaging, right? And making sure people communicate face to face. But I did work with a variety of industries. I think the one industry I have not worked in is healthcare and medical. A little bit. I mean, I haven't had too many medical clients, but I have had like health, like fitness. So that's as close as I got. But we really work on really customizing marketing plans for businesses and that strategy, that planning piece portion of it. And then we do help in terms of implementation in certain areas. Digital marketing is my jam. So I like to stay in those areas, whether it's digital advertising, paid advertising, social media, email marketing. Those are the areas I focus on. Some of the traditional marketing, which I have done in space, but I tend to not do a lot of it, you know, like especially around print and television, radio. I kind of stay away from that, but then I do have people I can recommend and things like that. A little bit more about me, like she said, I work with a bunch of brands. I've had this agency for I've had it in different forms of fashion for the past 15 years, but I've been really full-time with it, you know, so I've had corporate jobs and now I'm really full-time in it for a little under 2 years. And, but I've been in the digital marketing space for about 25 years, a little more than 25 years. I do recall going into the boardroom over in Dearborn for Ford and telling them that the internet's not going away and that they need to think about strategies around using that channel. Back in the 90s, I did that. So I've been doing this for a while. I've done management consulting, so I kind of bring in some of those processes that I've learned from a consultant's perspective. And then I also bring in some of the creativity from the time I spent in advertising as well, and communications and copy and things like that. Marketing is my jam. I mean, I got my degrees in it. And then a fun fact is that I have a son who's 17. We started the company about 4 years ago selling t-shirts online. And the purpose of it was because I love e-commerce and he needed to get a job and he didn't want to cut grass. So I was like, well, let's do something that maybe we both can like, and you can learn something along the way. So, so we have a business called Tees by Bobby. That's my son. And we just sell t-shirts, you know, online to various people and things like that. And that kind of helps me stay abreast of what's happening in e-commerce because it changes all the time. So as you know, part of the conversation that we want to have today is about trends and tactics in digital marketing. And I kind of there's two things I kind of beat with a dead horse. One of them is strategy and how strategy is important. And there's a business mission to understand and have a strategy. Two is data. I love data, and data is a big part of it. I won't go into that. I won't go down that path in this conversation, but for sure strategy, because one thing about digital marketing, there are so many things that you can do that people tend to like jump from tactic to tactic to tactic to thing to the next shiny object. And it really helps to just make sure it always rolls back into what is your strategy, what you need to do as a company. So I'm going to go through some of that. Some of the information I'm going to share too. Hopefully it won't sound too remedial to my experts out there, but to kind of give you a good understanding of a framework that I and marketers tend to want to work with when it comes to really executing on a plan. So to do that, I do have this downloadable guide. It's a step checklist. I'm not sure, Kristen, if you shared that with folks. We can put that in the chat if we want to, but I do have a guide that kind of gives you a checklist on marketing strategy and my 7 steps for that. So I will definitely share this afterwards so that you can definitely put that up. It's a nice little 1-pager. You can put it on your bulletin, put it on the wall. But anyway, and here's just a guide that kind of talks about creating that marketing strategy that leads to success. So to get to that, I'm going to go through that strategy a little bit. And but before we talk about that, I want to talk about some of the trends that you should consider to think about, because these are the things that have an impact on your strategy. And once you see that checklist, one of the first things that we do is assess where we are. So let me go through some trends. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to either, get off mute, let me know, and then we can go from there. So, and then I want to make sure this is kind of working for me. There we go. Obviously, digital marketing is a must for businesses and brands, and the need continues. Digital marketing took a big leap in 2020. We all know why. And it's not going away. It's something that all brands have to, you have to play in this world if you want to survive. And so that's critical. Virtual events savviness is a must. I think, and this is like, we're living and breathing this right now, right? With these lunch and learns, there are some great tools out there. I know that we're all pretty zoomed out, right? We get to this point on Thursday, and then by Friday, we're a little tired of sitting and watching Zoom all day. So coming up with interesting technology. I love Hopin. It's a very interesting platform. It allows for networking. It's very easy to use. But that's going to be a must going forward. We're always going to have this hybrid situation, at least for a while. But the good news is that consumer behavior loves to interact with other consumers. So we'll never get out of not having events, but we're going to have this hybrid. I do think that that folks are getting some insights from that, and they're learning that they're able to reach people, those who aren't able to meet face to face, not only because of pandemic, but maybe from proximity and things like that, that a hybrid of virtual events is going to still play a role in 2021. Social media platforms is definitely a must. And now they're becoming more than just discovery and awareness driven. Social media platforms is really the commerce side of it. The purchasing through your social media platform is definitely a rise, because people are on all these social media platforms right now. And whatever you can do to actually create that ability to purchase from your social media, we see that growing. And so that's going to really have sort of this full funnel social efforts. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, of what you need to do. So I know social media requires a lot of care and feeding, and it's now becoming even more important because more transactions are going to go through those platforms. Businesses definitely need to communicate their stance and their brand values. And it's going to make it easier to navigate in this current climate. So right now, businesses need to sort of talk about who they are and what they represent. And that needs to shine in those platforms because of the climate we're in, and how it has changed and has manifested. And then also how there's certain generations that are demanding that. So that is something that knowing who you are and what you stand for is now becoming the first and foremost, and it should be, presented, or people should be able to find that, within the marketing collateral. The customers first, we know that, but it's even more important because you really need to understand what those pain points are for that customer. Really, really understand the customer to the point where just being able to define who they are, because it's going to become more effective, especially in digital marketing, because you're going to be able to target these people. And so the best way to do that is to get to know the customer. I heard earlier today, I think it's by 2022, so next year, Google is getting rid of cookies. And so I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that, but the cookies on the website, we've all experienced that. You are looking up something for your mom around gardening, and all of a sudden on the web, everybody is now, all these ads are getting on the web and social media is around gardening. You don't care. You live in New York City. You were just looking something up for your mom, but you're getting tracked. Those ads are now, people are really, really pushing for privacy. And so from a technology standpoint, that's going to be going away. So the third-party tracking is going away. So what does that mean? That means how are you going to know your customer? You got to know them first. So you got to really think about that first-party tracking, which is really getting to know your customer, and having those conversations with them in that space. So that way you can still reach them and sell them online. So there's going to be a lot more aligning of marketing and sales, where marketing typically is, we're putting the leads into the funnel and the salespeople are converting those. You're going to see a tighter alignment of that for sure. And
Melissa,
yeah,
why is Google getting rid of cookies?
They're trying to get ahead of regulations. They believe that government is going to be pushing towards that, and some platforms have already started to do that, and so they know that because of what happened with Facebook and privacy and how that's becoming more and more important, and how customers hate it, right? You go to you use certain platforms, you would get an ad blocker. Some people get those apps to block ads from their browser. So they know that this is an area that it's evolving, and people don't want to be tracked that way. So Google's recognized that they need to get ahead of it before they're regulated to do so. And the fact that they already have enough information that it's not going to really help. It's not really going to mess with their bottom line too much. It just makes a positive statement for them. So they're going to start moving away from that.
So for some of us that don't know, could you explain what cookies are? And then are you going to be talking more about how to a little bit deeper in how to overcome not having cookies?
Yeah, yep, I definitely will.
Okay.
And yes, cookies are, again, if you are searching in your browser and you're looking up gardening tips and tools for your mom, and you are a friend, and then for the next several days, whenever you're online, you're constantly being served advertising around gardening tools and tips, around things around that area. So it tracks you. Or if you start to look up a pair of shoes and you realize it's COVID time, nobody sees my shoes, so I don't need to bother, but all of a sudden you're being tracked by DSW everywhere you go online. That's cookies. So it is they know who you are based on your IP address and your browser that you're using, and they're going to follow you. Advertisement companies, AdRoll, different companies like that will follow you online to get you to act, or you'll start to see it, maybe in your social media. So that behavior is going to stop if you haven't already blocked those type of ads. So that's the definition of cookies. And if you're not being followed because they know you have you showed an interest in shoes or gardening tools, the other ways of doing it is really just getting to know your customer, and then you raising your hand saying that, yes, I want that information. So that's how they're going to get around that. Another trend to think about and to consider is creating an online community, a space, especially pre and post events. And I just talk about this because it's not limited to different industries, but there's Facebook groups out there. There is Clubhouse. I'm not sure how many of you guys are on Clubhouse. If you know anything about Clubhouse, let me briefly talk about Clubhouse. Clubhouse is a new app that is only on iPhones. I'm an Android girl, so it's only on iPhones, and it is basically a way to come in and meet up with people to network in an auditory way. So it is, think of it as like a podcast, but it is an event podcast where you come and you enter into a room and you're with others, and it's only through auditory. So you only hear in listening to this audio messaging and conversation. So you can be invited into a room where you're sitting in a room and you're listening to the conversation that maybe Elon Musk is having about new trends in automotive. It is a way to also create your own rooms where you can have a topic that interests people, and people who are in the community will find that interesting and want to see that. So they want to kind of see where they or want to hear what you're saying. So that's what Clubhouse is. It's grown a lot, but again, it is only on iPhones. So you have to have an iPhone or a iPad to use it. It's not on Android or something outside of the iPhone community as an app. And Discord is it's an app that's been around for a while. It is pretty much very much like Clubhouse, but bigger, right? You can not only do audio, but you're able to do video and add content in a channel-like environment where you are invited, and so you have to be invited into it. It's not something that you can just join. So if that makes sense, that's the exclusivity of pretty much a lot of these online community spaces to kind of create that quality membership, is that you have to get an invite in and you have to be approved to join. So that will continue to happen. And it's something to consider as you, if you want to create that space, that you have a group or a member group that you can see. Let me continue and let me know if my, are you guys still seeing my screen? Just making sure. Okay, good. So last one, AI, machine learning.
We see the screen, it's the same original slide. Is that your intent?
All right, so yes, it should be, let me hit resume. Let me see if it's
the first one.
So are you seeing all the bullets now? Let's see.
I see bullets on the side, the left,
Yes.
but I don't see it on your main screen.
Okay. Let me stop sharing. I'm gonna share again. Let's see. Let's get this to work again. All right, can everybody see it now?
Yeah, that's much better.
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, it's kind of weird. So we've gone through several of these bullets, and I'm gonna leave it up here. So if you guys want to take a screenshot too, if you missed that, and let's talk about the last one, which is AI, machine learning. What machine learning is doing, it's replacing some A/B testing. Is from a marketing standpoint, so you could have a faster, what I call faster online advertising understanding. It's part of the marketing technology that is advancing out there. A great way to see that is if you use Facebook, and if you use Facebook ads. Right now, Facebook still suggests, hey, A/B test. An A/B test means that you're going to promote a something online, but you're not sure of your messaging, or you want to test out which messaging would better resonate with your audience. So you'll do an A/B test. So you could test copy and creative, two different sets to the same audience, and seeing how they respond to that, and if the response on one is better than the other, then that's a learn from the test, and then that will allow you to know, okay, this is the better way to message people. Us marketers, we do A/B testing all the time. Always be testing, I always tell people, because we want to know, we have a couple of messages, or we have a couple of images. I mean, you probably get this from your creative, where they create something and you're like, oh, I like it in blue, or I like it in red. Which one works better? And you can go out and test and see which one that will respond better in your community. Well, A/B testing is something that we've set up models and ways of doing it, having a control group and then testing and things like that. Well, based on technology and using AI, machine learning, this is eventually replacing some of that. And you're starting to see a little bit of that in Facebook advertising. I tell people who are maybe not familiar with A/B testing, if they do use Facebook advertising, to then turn on dynamic testing, and dynamic creative, I should say. And what dynamic creative does, it allows you to enter or put in a number of pieces of creative into an ad. And then it will use AI to determine what they should show to that person who is viewing your ad based on what they know about the person and what type of creative that you have. So that's sort of the machine learning aspect of that. And as we sort of been in this online advertising space for a while, there's a lot of data that's already been collected, and we kind of know, what colors work better on buttons and things like that. And so the machine learning is taking some of that guesswork out, and it just makes it a little bit more efficient. So that helps with efficiencies in terms of trends. And I tell people, if you are scoping out work, and if there is a line item for a lot of A/B early testing, especially in display advertising, just know that's going to be a shorter time period. It's going to truncate it down for people. So those are some of the major trends from a digital marketing standpoint. Now I want to move on to, all right, these trends, what does it mean in terms of what are some of the tactics that our people are doing? So we're going to move on to the next slide. And hopefully, all right, these are some strategies that we can kind of help grow your business. Like I mentioned before, knowing your customer, is important. And let me know that you still see these slides, or I'm going to put each bullet up one at a time. So one thing I tell people to do is talk to your existing customers. I said customers are first. So when it comes to how to grow your business, best place to do it is with your existing customers. So growing it and using your existing customers as your first step. Secondly, this goes back to that as well, as focusing on customer retention and the things that they need. So you may have provided your existing customer with something. Well, what can you offer? What's the new offer experience that you can develop with that customer to keep them sort of, or increase that customer lifetime value? So for example, if you are a realtor and you sell real estate and your customer is somebody who just purchased a home. I think some people think, okay, you're done. No longer, I'll see them in 7 years. That's my customer. No, obviously that customer, you can service them by providing them with information for their home, some transitional information, services, especially if they are new to the area, something that, requires, a service that you can put a price tag to, and that keeps them in your system a little bit longer. Then they become a great referral. And then that kind of just helps with the value. So that's one example. Another example is if just having someone who that you work with, that you provide sort of a VIP service for, and then talking to them in different ways, using text marketing or text messaging. So you're getting closer to them, and that's another way to kind of keep that customer retention kind of going. So that is one thing to consider from a strategy standpoint. I always tell people, even SMS, but email is still important. Having the email addresses and knowing who they are and just regularly communicating to them. Not necessarily you need to bombard them, but you just need to be in front of them. So that's still going to be important. So email strategies, sequencing of messaging, getting that out to folks is still critical. One area is definitely shortening the customer journey. And what I mean by that is, how they find you. So it's really understanding the buyer's journey and how they find you, how you interact with them, how then they convert. That is important to shorten that as much as possible. So what that means is a good example of that is social selling. Like I mentioned before, if you are a e-commerce company, like my son's t-shirt business, you sell through your website, you sell through Tees by Bobby. You could sell on Facebook now, on Pinterest, through text messaging. So shortening that journey, shortening the friction for them having to come to where you are and fill and go through your website and go through your checkout, which may require you to, put in a password so you can log in and track. Shortening the journey is going to become critical because people are like this, thanks to Amazon, which makes it easy that you can tell Alexa by to purchase your toilet paper. So that's really important, is to think about where areas that you can kind of shorten that customer journey. Another strategy to consider is, are you woke? Right now, we live in a interesting time. Obviously, 2020 had a lot of roller coasters of emotions, but one of the big ones is, are you woke? Are you on the right side of history when it comes to, especially in the US, but just in general, in terms of race relations and relations with people who may not look like you, and how they impact your life, your business, your industry. And if you are, and so you claim you are, you have to walk the talk. So that is something that there are the generations behind us. If I look at the Generation Z, I look at the millennials, the Gen Xers, that they want to see the walk. So it's more than just talking about how you are inclusive, but they want to see you walk it by putting out the numbers and making those statements. I think that's the reason why California just created I think it's a rule with their businesses now. The board of directors have to be made up with a certain percentage of diversity and minority and women board members. And so there's just a lot of climate, and a lot of people are talking about that. You're finding big businesses are really, leaning into that, but they're walking the talk, because if they don't walk the talk, we live in such a cancel culture. Everybody is canceling everybody left and right, unfortunately. And people are walking, and basically it's, they're walking with their, to another competitor. So, and it's easy to do that. So that's a strategy to kind of consider, is you got to walk the talk. Local SEO, for sure. Make sure that Google My Business, account is pandemic friendly. It's up. It has new features. I'm not sure how many of you guys, if you're business owners, have a Google My Business site up. And if you haven't, I strongly suggest that you make sure that you have your account up to date. It is almost to the point where it's almost requires the same amount of care and feeding as your other social platforms. And it needs to be, what I mean by pandemic friendly, this is where you add, we have new features where you update at times, that you're available, obviously, the phone numbers for sure. If you're providing any type of curbside efforts, I think as we're starting to move back into normalcy in terms of coming and going into businesses, what are some of those new rules and regulations that you have if somebody walks into your business? And Google My Business is the best way to do it, especially from a local standpoint. So Google My Business services is critical to have with your business. I mentioned before, paid ad testing, with AI. This is something that if you are new to doing a lot of online or digital marketing, their testing is still involved, but you want to make sure that you use it in a way that's going to help you understand your customer and knowing your customer. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. And a great way to do it is through paid ads. It's a cheap way to do it. I mean, if you think about traditionally in business, in marketing, you want to know who your customers are. You can ask them the questions through surveys and research, right? And go through that process of survey design and creating and getting the research and looking at the results, and then taking those results, turning those around into action steps, whether it's new products or services, and then putting that out in the world. But you could also do that through, even paid ads, because it's quicker and it's easier, because you could start to develop your service. You've got some information from your customer, you know your industry, and then you start to put that message out, and you're going to get immediate responses back to see if they respond to that or not. I had a client that had a great video editing services, and she put that message out, and she, her messaging and the copy that we created, it skewed heavily towards women. And so she wanted to talk about the service, and that was who she wanted to target. But we tested it out, and we found out, she responded, her efforts responded better with men. So we tweaked some things, we changed some things to make sure that her website and her brand kind of reflect that a little bit. And that just came through some paid ad testing and research that we did. So yep.
Melissa?
Yeah.
Can I go back on a question?
Sure.
To Google My Business?
Yeah.
You were talking about Google My Business. Does that mean that, could you explain what you mean? Does that mean just searching my name and seeing what comes up? Does that mean that my Google My Business, where somebody searches for my business, the address comes up? What did you mean by that?
Sure. So Google My Business actually is a product by Google that you will see it if you put in your name and a search comes up, and usually on the right hand side of your page you will have the information about that business. That information is something that you've provided to Google. So it's like a listing of your business within the Google directory, in the Google environment. And that listing of your business in the Google environment is called Google My Business. So sorry if there's a little bit of confusion there. And you can get your Google My Business set up if you go to Google and Google My Business. This is sounding crazy. It's a little assumption here, but that's what that sounds like. And you would just put in all the information that you need that they need to be able to show up as sort of a business in the area. It will provide the person who's looking for you. This is for my local businesses that that has a physical presence, and even if you don't have a physical presence, this is important so that they can find you in Google. That way they're able to find and they can be directed to you. They know your hours. People provide ratings and reviews. And that's becoming more and more important. This is where you can also put images of your business. You can put different promotions. That kind of starts with Google My Business.
Great. So literally, I went to Google. I went Google My Business, and then the first thing is update your business information, manage your free listing.
Yep.
And if you want to see what a Google My Business looks like, you could type in Dawn Connors. Kristen's got that all set up, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see what comes up for me. That's awesome tip. Thank you.
Yes, that is something that I highly recommend it, and especially because you hit on the point. It's free. Yes, I didn't mention it. It's free.
Right.
Yeah, to have that, and more and more businesses, as being in the digital space, you want to show up. It helps you with your SEO, your search engine optimization, because people are trying to find you, and all they're doing is like, where's the closest blah blah blah, and you can find it through Google My Business. So hope that helps. But definitely, if you haven't done it, that's something that is easy for you to do. It doesn't take too long to set up as well. So I highly recommend that's something to kind of get done and set up before the weekend. And then another thing I tell people about is be human and tell a story. Be casual. Authenticity wins. What's happening these days is there was this shift, especially when it comes to the social platforms, that on the business side. So your business pages, your Facebook business page or your Instagram business page, that there was an amount of professionalism that still needs to be there, but it doesn't. But being casual about it wins, because people want to see authenticity. That's why I tell people, especially coming out of advertising, we really had to kind of shift the focus and mindset when we worked with bigger brands, that we didn't want to be that polished, because people are so used to want to see authenticity, and that's not being that polished. This last year kind of forced people into it, right? We're all on here on Zoom. We're doing the best we can, right? And we recognize that, and everybody's sort of in the same space, that it's okay, you know, to kind of show up where you're not necessarily not you're still professional, but you're not polished, if that makes any sense. You're just being human and you're telling a story. Like we've already said, we're all zoomed out. We're tired of Zoom. We've been doing this for so many months. So it's okay, you know, you may not necessarily have to show people that you're sitting there in your pajama bottoms, but you know, it's okay. We're all doing it, you know, so just be authentic about it. Just tell the story about it, you know. You know, it's okay that, you know, this frame that you see is the most perfect thing that you may have in your house while the rest of the house is destroyed. It's fine. It's just be human about it, because we're all because authenticity wins. It is something that I think, especially some of the older generations, Gen Xers, baby boomers, you know, it's a new concept maybe for us, but younger millennials, Gen Zs, that is a requirement. They will look at you a little bit, you know, a little bit leery and weary if you are not authentic, because, you know, we're only human. So tell that story. Feel free to share those insight and informations to, you know, to your customers and clients through the best way to do it is through social means, and you know, through video. I know people, you know, are concerned about video, but even coming on video and just talking about your day and saying, hey, I'm here, but this just happened to me, but let me talk about this topic. It just kind of humanizes you. And I think we all kind of need to be a little more human and positive in the world. And we're all sort of in this boat together. So nobody's perfect. And then lastly, for sure, get sound advice. You know, if you have a strategy that you're not sure how to implement because of this past year, COVID related, you know, get sound advice from your business advisors, from agencies such as myself, to kind of help you, you know, move down this path and what makes sense based on who your customers are. And the sound advice comes with a methodology, a process, and some evidence of results. So moving on, that actually took a little longer than I thought, but we'll keep going because I still have a lot more to share with you. Like I mentioned before, strategy, you know, strategy starts with having the right goal in mind and what makes sense for that goal. And right now, you know, your goals that you have, especially for your marketing goals, you got to have the shortened time frames. We're no longer thinking 5-year goals at this point. We're really focusing on what I call the now, near, and far, which is now is like in the next 90 days. Near is 6 months and far is 12 months. I mean, we've shortened the timelines down because, you know, we all remember what happened at this time last year. We had just finished our wonderful 2020 planning period, and we're like in the process of implementing, and the world stopped. And what we needed to do. I told people last year a lot, like, don't throw away your plans. It's not like the plans have changed. It just shifted a bit. But now we have to kind of consider that things could change in 90 days. And in this time period, especially in COVID time, what can change in 90 days? We all know that, all right, we're on this track in terms of vaccination. Things are opening up. Could they close back up? There's all these things that we have to kind of consider. So the shortened time frame is most important in terms of goal planning and creating those goals. I wouldn't go beyond a year, honestly. So let's talk about the execution of this, the execution of these tactics. Okay, if you're doing now, near, and far, how to execute from a digital marketing standpoint, it starts with understanding the funnel. Some of you may have seen this or may know a little bit about this, but from a marketer standpoint, this is sort of the framework. This is the framework I like to use with my clients in terms of what tactics that you need to achieve for your success and your goal, your growth. And I'm going to explain it to you just briefly in terms of the funnel. The funnel starts with awareness. It's with people who know who you are, your brand, your company is, and it goes all the way down to loyalty. And each area has tactics that make sense from a digital marketing standpoint. in the awareness area, they want to get to know you. So up here, the best spot for me from a digital marketer standpoint for people to get to know you is obviously your website, social media. That's a big awareness grabber. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have 1 million followers. No, what it means is that you're out there and people can kind of find you. So looking and utilizing social media and using that as a reach tool to reach out to people, because we're all online. YouTube has, I think it's 4 billion people are on YouTube, and Facebook is over 3 billion people are on Facebook, and the world is 7 billion. So there's a lot of people, your customers are there. They're in these platforms. So getting out there and letting them to get to know who you are, you're just getting them to be aware that you exist. And social media can kind of help you with that awareness. Again, the next one is like, they know you exist, but now they're considering you. So the know, like, and trust factor is what people talk about when it comes to social media. And getting them through that funnel is that they need to know who you are, they consider you. In the consideration mode, a tactic would be that they would lead generation. Maybe you would have them download a checklist, like what I have. Something that they may consider because they find value in what you have to offer. They are maybe listening to one of your podcasts. So not only do they know you, but they're actually spending time with you. That's sort of the consideration. They like you, they're spending time with you, they're absorbing your content. So that's something that they are in consideration. And then the conversion is where they trust you. And they're like, all right, I'm willing to give something of myself to you. So this is where it's getting into download a checklist, get an email address, or yes, I want that coupon, or yeah, I want to sign up to get alerts. So that is sort of the conversion tactic. And then the last one that a lot of people don't talk about a lot, but I always like to hammer it home, is the loyalty aspect, the advocacy. And this is fealty. So it's not only the know, like, and trust factor that you hear a lot, but it's know, like, and trust, and then fealty. Fealty is when they're loyal to you. They're loyal to you and your brand. They're not going to be persuaded. It's a large barrier to exit. And you want to make sure that they stay in your ecosystem. And that they become your best customers. They become your best marketing, because they will swear up and down what you offer, what you have. And this is where the referrals come from. This is where the ratings, reviews, and the recommendations come from. This is where they will come back, and the repeat customers, repeat being a friend, is when they swear fealty. The best example I always tell people is fealty to me is the iPhone users versus the Android users. There's people who swear by iPhones. They're never leaving the Apple environment. They swear fealty, and whatever new Apple product that comes out, they're going to buy it because they're in that ecosystem. Same thing with iPhone users like me. Well, we love the Google system, we love our Android, and we are in that environment, and we swear up and down, if you really want a really good phone that takes the best pictures, then obviously you're going to get an Android, a Galaxy, a Samsung. You're not going to get an iPhone. So it is that fealty that most businesses need to try to really focus on. And so these are how you can execute. So you can create a plan that starts from awareness and works your way down. But what I do and what I tell some of my clients is, right now, it's flipping that funnel. So we flip it upside down. It's really, again, focusing on your current customers now and understanding and building and investing in the loyalty side of it. Investing in them to make it very hard for them to exit and to go to your competition because of the value and the services that you offer. So investing some of the marketing tactics from that area is what I suggest. A good example of that is if you're a realtor, or not a realtor, a retailer, you own a store. A great example of that is membership and VIP services. You offer a VIP exclusives for the store content that you may have, for maybe deals and discounts. And that's to your repeat customers. And you could determine what is the definition of a repeat customer. But those are some of the tactics that, from a digital marketing standpoint, is setting up like a loyalty card or loyalty service, right, for them. And you're working your funnel backwards. Now, this funnel that I'm showing you, between these two pictures, I'm showing you in a very linear way because it's easier to explain it that way. I used to have like a funnel where it's more circular, but that's the reality of the world, where it is a little bit more circular, where people will be aware. And I know you've done this because I know we've all done this, right? You saw something in maybe a commercial, or you saw something online and it was like, huh, that's kind of cool. I think I might look into that. You start to look into it. You may even pick it out, like, okay, I want in this color, I want this size, and you may even put it in your cart. But then you go back and you're like, okay, you got distracted, or no, you didn't need it, and then you saw something else that you kind of liked it better, so you go back up to awareness, and so you're doing this constant circle, and so you're engaged, but you're not ready to pull the trigger. That is a circular, constant circular pattern that happens. I know I tell people this when I used to work in automotive, because I used to say with automotive, or even like house building, because I worked in home building too, that it takes like, every 7 years you're ready to buy a new car, or you're thinking about purchasing, but you're like 6 months out or 12 months out. And that's typically has been the thinking that a lot of marketers have used, and a lot of businesses have used in the past. But now everybody's always looking, because of especially in the digital space. You may have just bought a car, but you're online and you kind of start looking at cars. You're still looking at different, this new car. Like I went down the rabbit hole. I think of a new car 2 weeks ago. There was this new vehicle that I thought was really, really cool. I think it was what was it? It was a Hyundai Iconic. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Am I in a process? Am I in a need to buy a new car? No, but you will start to go, and you want to build trust, and you start to kind of do this circle of the journey. And so while this funnel is very linear, people are going through this circle. So that's where you want to kind of invest your time and your money in understanding that what you want to get out of this journey, and the tactics that you put in play in there. With that journey, all that's going to kind of help craft this marketing plan, like I keep talking about. And there's a variety of different areas, that are part of this plan, from online marketing to public relations to branding to public. There's all these pieces that need to play in the role. And I'm going to talk about a couple of things, from my strategy checklist that is a part of this plan. But before we do that, one thing I do want to mention is that if you're in the process of trying to, kind of craft out a marketing plan or a campaign for your business, I know I do have a cheat sheet, like a worksheet that I love sending people, that I'm more than happy to share with you. It just kind of helps lay it out, so you're thinking about everything you need to know in the order that you need to do it in, from your marketing standpoint. So this is like a campaign plan worksheet that definitely, I know I shared the checklist, but if you're interested, you can go to the Bitly link to get that, screenshot this, for sure. And I'm happy to kind of send this to you. And it just kind of helps to structure, your campaign, the campaign or the launch or the new product that you're working on. So feel free to screenshot and capture that. But that's a nice, cool, editable worksheet that you can use, or you can have your marketing folks kind of use it. And again, I want to tell people I threw a lot here at you, and a lot of things that we've talked about. And I just want to kind of go back and tell people to kind of keep it simple. I think sometimes people, or as I know, as businesses, we want to provide the best value to people, and sometimes people equate value with quantity, and that's not the case. There's a lot of things. If you go back to this picture, there's a lot here that could be overwhelming, especially if marketing is not your jam, like it is for me. And planning and digital marketing is an area that you just want to start in. I tell people to keep it simple. I have this picture with these kittens, because these kittens represent all these lovely, cute, shiny objects, these cute things that you can do. But you know what? You just need one or two. You don't need all the kittens in a box. You need just one or two to really focus on. So if you're planning for your business and you want to move the needle, think of focusing on one thing is more important than trying to do everything, because there's so much in digital marketing that you can touch upon. Focus on, like, for the next 30 days, maybe it is shoring up your social media. Maybe it's being more consistent there, making sure that you have the right strategy and the right messaging on that, and focusing a lot on that, because that will eventually lead to more things for you. Maybe it is, your branding, and you need to update some of things on your website. So spend just time on that, because people are having a hard time flowing through. Just focusing on the one thing, I think, is important, because if you kind of jump all over the place, you kind of lose track of the strategy if you do miss out on trying to do everything. So focusing on one or two things, I think, is critical. So make sure that you kind of do that. So before we move on, I want to flip over to my, let me stop sharing this page, and I'm gonna start sharing the checklist that I know we can kind of put in the chat, as well as I know download that, but because I want to cover a couple of things on the checklist. So you should see my checklist here. And this is just a quick walkthrough of what you want to do from a marketing strategy standpoint. Talked a little bit about, reviewing your products and services and your service offering. Assessing is one of the critical things, and we talked a little bit about that from the trend standpoint, what you need to assess. I talked about determining goals and knowing, using the now, near, far method. But then I want to talk about understanding your audience a little bit. I want to go into a little more depth there. So I want to go through audience. Performance indicators, like I mentioned before, I love data. Data's my jam. And so I'll touch briefly upon that. Understanding what the best channels to be in, because you don't need to be everywhere. This is getting to my kittens area. You don't need to be everywhere. So knowing the best channels, and then what these tactics that you need to address, and then again, measuring, analyzing, and optimizing. So this is just a quick checklist that you want to keep in mind when you're starting to think strategically, what I need to do. And I just want to quickly just share that with you. And then now I'm going to jump back to my slides to kind of go through more things around the audience. So let's kind of get to that share screen again. And again, I hope you're finding this information useful. And if not, please be very honest in your review and on the evaluation form, because I'm forever the student, and I want to make sure that I provide some of the best content going forward. So I mentioned keeping it simple, and here's a great way of how you can reach me. Oh, I do. Yeah, I didn't mention knowing the customers. So let me go back. Let me go back to customers.
Melissa?
Yes.
Can you go back to the screen that had that free piece that you were going to give right before? Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. If anyone else wants that. So if we go to your website, that HTTP link, we'll be able to download it. Is that correct?
Yep. You're able to download it. And let me know, because you have my handles at the bottom, and I have my email address on the next page. If you have any problems downloading it, let me know. I'll email it to you out to you as well.
That's great. Thank you.
But yeah, let me go back and let me talk about, I forgot, I took that slide out just as I was thinking of timing. Let me talk about the audience and knowing your audience. Because I think that's one of the critical things when it comes to digital marketing success and failure, is knowing your audience, right? You have customers. That's the great thing. If you're an existing business, you already have customers. And so the big way to know your audience is obviously asking them questions, right? Asking them what they want, what they prefer, and then having them be part of the process, that kills two birds. That one, it gets you to know who your audience is a little bit more. And two, it adds to authenticity, that whole authenticity area where they can start to trust you because they see you're asking questions. They see that you have intent on wanting to provide better value and better service to customers like them. So asking questions about what your audiences want and prefer is the first, first party research that you can do. And if you can't do that, another way is to look at your customers and then try to define them by what I call personas, trying to understand who they are and how one customer differs from the other customer. This becomes important when it comes to digital marketing for targeting purposes. You want to be able to target your customers in a way that's based on several things. So if you're doing digital marketing advertising, social advertising like Facebook and Instagram, you need targeting, audience targeting information. So you need to know who they are. So, and it goes beyond the demographics that I think a lot of people use: the age, the household income, location, male, female. That's the starting point. But now you need to dig deeper and really look at interests and behavior. And these are some of the things that you want to ask questions about with your customers. And if you're unable to do that, you need to really look and see how your customers typically behave based on third-party data that you may get from certain research. But you want to find out what their interests are, because with all the data that's being collected online, whether we like it or not, they're getting to that. We know what they're in. You should know if they're interested in certain things, and you start to see a pattern. And you could start to develop that, and then you will use advertising to kind of test those things out, prove them out. If you have a base of customers that are and older women entrepreneurs, I'm going to say that. So what would be some of the interests that they are interested in? It could be different women organizations that help women entrepreneurs. It could be certain magazines. I always say, look at the magazines level. That's a great place to understand interests of folks, magazines, trade associations, and build out this persona, because this is the information that you can create and target in advertising. On the Google advertising side, that will also translate. While they do have audience targeting too in certain areas, but that also translates in keywords and SEO and how you explain certain things to people and doing Google ads. Because the difference between the two platforms, and I tell people, if you only have so much money when it comes to digital advertising, where should you put it? The difference between a Facebook platform and a Google platform is all about intent. Your Facebook is your social selling, and yes, they're doing more of that, but Google ads is intentional. People will Google something that they need because they're intent on buying it. Where unless Facebook, you're there because you just happen to be on Facebook because in your timeline, a new picture of your grandkid or a new picture, you want to see how your friends are doing. You're there with that first, and then, oh yes, I can transact, I can buy, I can communicate on Facebook. It's not as intentional as Google ads. So I tell people, really focusing on Google ads is definitely something that people should consider in their business, especially on local Google ads. It's just that there's the complexity of Google ads, and does require that you are committed with a significant, I wouldn't say a significant budget, but a decent budget, a budget that's going to last more than 30 to 90 days, where Facebook and Instagram, you can dip in and out when it comes to advertising because it's a little more launch friendly, where you could be in and advertise something for 14 days to 28 days and you're cool. Where Google ads, you need to build up. You need to build up some time, that recognition of keywords, that recognition of that machine learning that happens. But when you do build that up and you do see and recognize the outcome, Google ads they convert really well because people are there with intention, their intent to buy something. So conversion is extremely high. And then the scalability is where Google ads trends upwards. You can scale from there, but you need to understand your audience first to be able to do that, because your audience is going to tell you everything from messaging to pricing and everything like that. So what your audience wants, what are their interests, how much they're willing to pay. So audience to me is very critical in any part of the strategy. That's the first thing I always work with my clients on, is making sure that you understand your audience, and it's just not one person. It's the breadth of who could be in your audience, who could be your target. For example, if you have a woman who is a woman entrepreneur owner, one audience is the older woman who is 55 plus entrepreneur. She's in a different life than the 35 plus entrepreneur who may have kids, who may have grade school kids, and those require different messaging. So knowing each of those audience segments is critical, and laying that out. Like for me, for example, I am a digital marketing agency. I have about 8 different segments. Now, granted, I do work in a lot of different industries, but I have 8 different segments of individuals that I can work with, and I'm just an agency. So other business needs to know that it's more than one, it's more than 2. Most businesses that I've worked with in different industries, it's about 4 or 5 minimum that they need to create an audience for, because that's going to make the targeting more effective. That needs to happen
Melissa?
when it comes to digital marketing. Yes.
We're between 10 and 15 minutes for,
We are.
yep.
We are.
Wanted
Okay.
to give you a heads up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I talked a little bit about audience. The last thing I wanted to talk about was my plug, on data and just knowing the right metrics to look for, and what are some benchmark metrics. I also I'm going to flip ahead on my slides back to this slide here. If you want to set up time with me, and I offer a free discovery call, and we can just kind of chat one-on-one about, some challenges or some results or things that you may need in your business. But I also have a nice one-pager benchmark on key metrics. If you own an e-commerce business, I created for e-commerce. And if you need to know what's the good, the bad, the ugly in terms of what your metrics are doing, I have a nice one pager that I'm happy to share with any of my e-commerce owners out there, or retailers in particular who sell products. What you need to do when it comes to your online marketing, and what conversion numbers that you need to have. When it comes to digital marketing, there's critical metrics that you want to make sure that you're capturing and you're monitoring. Obviously it's traffic in, so that funnel, what traffic's coming into that funnel, what are they doing there, and then how are they converting, and then how can I get more? And so having a dashboard of those metrics that you can see on a regular basis, that you can help tweak, what you need to do from your strategy and your tactics standpoint, is critical. And digital marketing, the basis of digital marketing is the data. The information is all in the data that you get back, and that kind of helps determine new strategies going forward, and what things you need to let go. Is the data that's being collected in a certain way. So let me stop and let me open it up to any questions that anyone may have. Let me go ahead and I'll stop sharing too. So let me open up to questions that anyone may have. Now I can see the chat. So let me open the chat too, if anybody put anything in there as well. Where's my chat? Oh, there it is.
No, Melissa, we've been watching that.
Okay.
I think that what you gave is great information, yet it is overwhelming. So could you spend a couple minutes with where can a person like myself or Terrence or Rochelle start like what are some key things that we can do? Like I loved your idea about Google, and that was like an execution thing that we can take and we can execute. Could you give us 2 or 3 more like tactical things that we can do and simple things that we can execute on? Does that question make sense?
Oh, it does make sense. Yes, it does make sense. And I was hoping to kind of, I know I threw a lot at you. That's why my little kittens, I know to try to keep it simple because there's a lot in digital marketing. And so yes, Google My Business, keep doing that. From a social standpoint, social media, think of only 1 or 2 platforms. That's it. Don't try to be anywhere and everywhere. I tell people, okay. Facebook, because there's 3 billion people on there, and I'm sure your customers are there, is one platform to consider. But and you want to think of another one, 1 or 2, but just at least with one, just be consistent in getting your message out on a regular basis, and do that, and setting up that calendar where it could make it easy for you to get it out, so you're not being overwhelmed with that. And the best way to do that is with batching content and segmenting out your content based on certain days of the week. Like, you may see hashtags, Motivation Monday, send out a quote, Throwback Thursday, send out a picture of you in the past. That helps with authenticity. But for sure, just being consistent in your social content. So Google My Business, so people can find you through Google My Business. Social media, be consistent and create that consistency. And then the last thing is what I like to call frictionless transactions. Make sure that people can give you something in the easiest way possible. So if you need to fix your website so that people can purchase something from you, that it's very easy for them to do, or if you want them to give you an email address, have a pop-up. So make it easy to transact with you in the easiest way possible. So if your website is people can't find the path, then focus on that as well. Those are like sort of 3 basic things for success. Super. that to kind of focus on. I'll throw in 2 to make sure you know your customer. Just make sure you've identified your customer, but that's your social media will help you with that.
Who else has a question? Oh, we've got a couple in while somebody's unmuting. Okay. What do you think of Pinterest and Instagram as being a number 2? Which one? What's your opinion of each of them, and what would be the number?
Number 2.
What would be your opinion?
Number 2, one thing, the cool thing about Instagram is attached to Facebook. So you can almost cross-platform with that. So if you post and publish on Facebook, it can go to Instagram like that. So that makes it easy to do that. Instagram being very visual, obviously you need to have a visual presence. Well, Pinterest is the same way. You need to have a visual presence. I always say, go where your customers are. So ask them if they're on Instagram or if they're on Pinterest. If you look at the 2 in terms of volume and numbers, Instagram is bigger than Pinterest. Instagram allows you to do more video than Pinterest. So I always, I kind of go with that. I cheat and say, Instagram is fairly easy to add on because it's attached to Facebook. So. And
then what is your opinion? Well, the question is from Daryl Lynn. Virtual assistants, can this work?
Oh, yes. I highly recommend them, especially if you are strapped for time and you need to offload some things, because if you are a business owner, you need to offload those things that don't produce dollars for you. And a virtual assistant is the perfect person or group that can help you with that. And you could start it off, on a contract basis, so you can kind of test some things out. What makes the virtual assistant successful is establishing a process that they can follow. So if you do something on a regular basis over and over again, and they can kind of pick that up, it's definitely a load off. And you can find a number of virtual assistants out there, of good value, that if you just need to start with just 5 hours a week, You'll be amazed what can be done in 5 hours a week. This is a trick I used to do with my son, saying, clean your room for 10 minutes and you'll be amazed what happens. And then he gets his room clean. He doesn't know because 10 minutes, is a long time. So I highly recommend them. I know I have some myself that I use in my business. And it's a great value, when you're strapped for time and you need to offload those, what I call non-revenue producing tasks.
Unmute. Okay. Any sources for virtual assistants?
I do have a few sources. I have a couple of folks that I have used that, if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to share
Thank you.
those with you.
Will do.
Yep.
Dave Sullivan asks, and I'm not sure exactly what he means when he says platform. He says, what platform is the best value right now, and how do you maximize the visibility on that platform? Do you understand that question, Melissa?
I'm not sure. I don't understand.
I don't either.
Yeah, in terms of value, I'm not sure if you're talking about.
I'm not sure what he means by platform. Does he mean
social platforms?
Oh, I think maybe for spending money. Social platforms are free, but maybe advertising dollars, which I think you had said that some of them you can dip in, dip out, others you have to spend a lot of money on. So it sounds like if you have a budget, maybe Google might be best. If you don't, and you kind of have to go in and go out, maybe Facebook. That's what I think he's asking. Correct.
Okay.
He says.
Yeah. I think if your budget is small, you want to go with the platform that could have the best conversion for you, but you could dip in and out of Facebook more so than you can Google. It's just timing. I always tell people the know, like, and trust factor and fealty. You need to engage them a little bit more on Facebook because they have to know and like and trust you. They may not be there to convert or purchase from you just yet. So you have to kind of establish a relationship and nurture them a little more than on Google. But you can nurture for free, through Facebook, through an email, than on Google. Any other questions?
Deanna says, I hire out a virtual assistant for real estate. So Deanna, if you could give us more clarification, who you use, and then what tasks do you virtually hire out, that would be great. Is Fiverr something that you could use for virtual assistants, or is that more for like marketing creation or thank you cards?
You know what, I look at Fiverr more for like those tasks, those marketing creation type of tasks, and very simple ones. There, but yeah, virtual assistants, I really there's a number of virtual assistants organizations, companies, both here in the United States, cheaper runs or overseas, and looking at like maybe Upwork is a better source for that, or I just have a referrals from some of the business groups I'm in that have great virtual assistants, and then who I use. So virtual assistants is, they do more than the Fiverr is a one task and done type of deal. The virtual assistants, they're coming in, they're doing things that you may need to be done on a regular basis over and over again. For example, I do social media for my clients that leaves me very little time to do my own. But I work with my virtual assistants on helping me with my social media, and making sure I'm out there consistently.
Mrs. Bowers, and for anyone else who's interested in a virtual assistant, Deanna hires herself for virtual duties. So forms, cool. CMA, searches. So it's Deanna Lesher, and I'm going to give you her phone number, and it is in the messages too. Deanna Lesher, 248-807-0892. Thank you, Deanna, for making yourself available. And she's in the group.
Oh, you know what? Somebody briefly asked about, I know we talked about cookies a little bit, but we didn't really talk about the pixel. And I know some people had questions about that. Facebook has what's known as the pixel. It's like their version of the cookie, but the pixel is something that every site should have. and you need to make sure you have a Facebook page, and then you need to make sure the pixel, which is a little piece of code that needs to go on your website, is on your website. So that way, you know, people who came from your Facebook ad, went to your website, did something and came back, and Facebook could track that. The pixel is very important to find out more information about that, and making sure that your website has that pixel in place, and working with someone who can either put it in place for you. There are help areas that can do that. But if you need more information about that, yeah, feel free to shoot me over an email about that too, and I can help you with the pixel. But there's a difference. The pixel's not going away like cookies. The pixel is going to be around for a minute.
Yeah, we're definitely going to want more information on that, Kristen. That's good, isn't it? Oh, okay. Does anyone else want further clarification on that in the next 2 minutes as we wrap up?
Yes.
No, okay on that.
I would like to know about the pixel. Are you talking about like a little code that you put on your website, but is it the same code? Like, does everybody have the same code of the Facebook pixel code, or is it varying?
It varies by your business. So your business, you have your own pixel, and somebody else has a different pixel. So you would establish a pixel within the Facebook business manager page. And then that's the code, that's the ID number that you will put on your website. So each business will have its own pixel ID, as they call it. And that way, when you do ads and people see you, you can then track, you can then see the conversion. You can then, the most important thing is to find out people who show an interest in you, and you can then retarget them and say, you went to my website, so now I'm going to do an ad with just you because you went to my website, and I can tell you something that's a little bit different, somebody who doesn't know you just yet.
Okay. And so does Facebook generate that pixel for you on the business page? They don't do.
They do.
Okay.
They do.
So you'd have to go to the business section. What section would you go to for that?
You will go to business.facebook.com.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And everybody should, if you have a Facebook business page, you definitely need to go there because you have to get your page verified for sure to be able to use that. So business.facebook.com.
I just have a quick question in the 2 minutes that we have. You were saying, and that's a great point, Facebook, you have to actually establish rapport with customers first in order for them to know you. Otherwise, you're just a face on the screen. Mm-hmm. 2 ways, significant ways to advertise yourself via Google. I know that you were mentioning Google is a great base. I probably missed it, but if you could possibly repeat, just 2 good ways to advertise via Google.
Well, the Google My Business is the first and foremost. So make sure you have your Google My Business set up. When it comes to Google Ads, the Google AdWords, pretty much you only need text. You don't need images, and you need just one offer that you want to ask. But then you also want to have a number of different keywords. So the more keywords, the better. And you want to just find out in the mind of somebody who's looking for your product, how they're going to search for you. So use Google search. There's a couple of other areas of Google. There's Google display. There's some other areas that until you become more sophisticated and familiar with how Google operates, and from a budgeting standpoint, I start with Google search because that's their oldest and that's the most important application tool that they have. And then you have a couple of messages that you want to tell people as much as possible, your website address, a link to whatever the product that you have, and then creating the budget, and then it's all about the keywords. And then in the Google platform, adwords.google.com, there's planners in there that can help you with coming up with different keywords. One source is to look at the keywords of your competition. Let's see if you can bump up or kind of compete with that. So did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for joining us today, Tasha Wood. It is good to see you. Really good to see you, girl. Thank you, lovely.
Melissa, wonderful, wonderful job. Very informative, talented, professional. We appreciate you. We value you. Not to speak for everyone, but yes.
I'm so happy to help. I put my email address in the chat. If you guys want to save the chat real quick and grab that. Anytime. It's been a pleasure talking with everyone.
Thank you.